Sure. Eric Nakkila from Toronto, company Selective Design. We're a distribution company that specializes in bringing products from Europe, Canada, into the US and Canadian market.
So we are here at CEDIA Expo 2025 in the Volkswagen ID Buzz, which I gotta tell you, I'm a little geeked out about this. I love this.
It is awesome. I mean, EVs is where the world is going, and it's so fun to see companies coming out with creative ways of getting people excited. And this is the perfect example of it.
Yeah, I love this. Do me a favor, let's back up a second. Tell me your opinion, your take, state of the industry.
Well, I think the industry's, evolved so much. I've been involved with it for, the other day I was counting it up and I was like, wow, over 25 years. And over the last 25 years, it feels like we're coming around in a full circle. We used to call it custom installations. And I think that's where it's at again. We went through this phase where it was just, let's hang some LCD TVs, plasma TVs on the walls. But now I think it's going right back to custom integration. So I don't think it's custom installation, which it ends up being, but it's more about integrating technology into the smart home. And that's exciting to me because it's almost like I've lived through it when it was at the infancy, and now it's maturing again. It goes around in a circle. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in the next few years as companies adapt to people's needs with their design-oriented requests. And that's where, we really positioned ourselves as Selective Design to be in that position to show clients that they can do something really beautiful while having good performance too.
So are you on the client side?
We're a manufacturer representing manufacturers as well.
Okay. So you're primarily on the manufacturer side, working with integrators and clients.
That's right. So we'll go into working with dealers who are looking for something that's cool to bring into their projects, but we also attract interior designers, architects, builders, and then we connect them with the right dealers who are able to deliver the right systems.
This is a pedestrian question, and it's not based to target anybody in particular, but I've heard a couple things, and I want your take on this, that the Europeans are doing a magnificent job with regard to integration.
They are. They've taken a different approach than I think here in North America. That's what I've seen over the years is, in North America, we like to make things big and loud and, spectacular. But in doing so, it's often at the compromise of the design and what people are looking for in their homes. And in Europe, because they live in smaller spaces, they aren't in such a disposable type of economy, which I think we have learned to have. But I think that's changing. It's shifting as well. People are looking for solutions that will endure for a longer period of time. So I think, that European influence is really coming now, at least to the high end of the market where people are more design oriented. So that's my take on how the Europeans are really influencing now the North American market too. I think it's coming around.
What are you seeing now that has you excited, that maybe you hadn't even seen 2 years ago?
That's a tough one. I feel like I've seen it all, but I try and pick people's brains all the time about what's exciting. And
is it that it's not necessarily new, but different? I'll give you an example.
Sure.
And we've been talking about this a great deal at the show this year, is lighting. The idea of lighting, when you have something as, it's not simple, but 8-10 years ago, incandescent was what you had to work with. Cut to CFLs. Ugh.
What a disaster that was.
Oh, gosh. Well, you couldn't do anything with it.
Right. Yeah.
Then you had a better CFL. Then you had LED. But you had on-off LED. Then it just completely binary. Then you have what we have now, which what it does, the tools that it provides manufacturers provides integrators, provides design teams to do things down to the nuanced level of colors and hues that are complementary to the furnishings and wall colors.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So what's really attracted me to lighting is, I think our industry, when they first started and they tried, everybody was excited about the LED strip lights. And I didn't understand why they were putting them under every nook and cranny and then, doing disco lights with them. But I think that's now evolved too. I think we're past that baby stage of lighting where they're thinking further now and looking at artwork and how the light works with furnishing and the different colors and architectural details in homes, and that is exciting. So I think the lighting fixtures that integrators are now being introduced to is definitely evolved, and I've been impressed by how they're able to narrow in that light beam so that it gives spark to a specific beautiful piece of art, for instance, in the home. And even on our side for speakers, we have speakers that have lights built into them now. So every project that goes out with a company we work with called Arquitectura Sonora, they have an LED strip that's part of the speaker itself, which is really beautiful sculpture used in outdoors and as well as indoors. And you can have lighting in there too. It's not your main lighting, but it's, again, an accent and allows for a nice pathway lighting. And yeah, that is an exciting part. The lighting side, I think, is true. It's something that's new in our industry. And I'm glad that the integrators are learning more about how to do it well.
And this idea of sound. There was a time, I remember growing up in Southern California in the San Fernando Valley in the 1970s and 80s, where every new home at that time was built with the home intercom. After the home intercom, that led to the next innovation was whole home audio, but it wasn't smart. It wasn't technical. Now what you have in comparison to that is exceptional, but the bones are the same. It doesn't feel like it's fundamentally changed.
So true. I remember those 2 days as well as a kid, being at my friend's home. They were so cool. They had the intercom system. And, the mom would put some classical music to play in the background so it would make us smarter or something. Well, you know what? Still today, those moms are out there popping up the classical music for the family to enjoy until teenage son comes along and turns on their whatever rock and roll, or what are they listening to these days? Rap or something crazy. And gets the rest of the house pounding with some good tunes. But yeah, it's fundamentally, enjoying music in your home has been going on for a long time. The difference today is, you're right, it's just upgraded in so many ways. Everyone has control in their pockets. You pull out your phone and you're able to stream your favorite music with systems that our integrators are installing invisibly, have invisible speakers like the Nakkila tones that we represent for North America and sell around the world too. You can do it without seeing the speaker, without that ugly intercom in the wall any longer. And you don't have to go up to the wall and press those buttons. You're doing it while you're sitting at the couch with your phone or your iPad. So that is exciting. The music side of it is really cool because now you can integrate it, walk out to your backyard and continue enjoying that same playlist that you're listening to in the kitchen, and it just follows you.
Well, and I think there's more to it. I mean, obviously there's more to it as well, but one example of that to me would be this resurgence in vinyl and records, and the fact that you have such high quality output that you can hear the needle drop and you can hear the grooves and you can actually hear all the things in an original recording that's taken out by just a standard digital playback. But if you want to enjoy it inside and outside and throughout the home, the opportunity, and because the equipment is getting so much better.
So true. That's a good point. With the turntables being, I saw some article the other day. I think it's one of the fastest selling and highest volume audio technology today is turntables. And it's like, what? Turntables? For real? Well, it's true. I've seen so many homes where they're putting in audio connections that connect to the main audio matrix and allowing you to listen to the turntable in whatever room you're in. And there is a big resurgence as well, just to that dedicated space where you can have a turntable with your beautiful floor standing speakers. We represent a brand called Waterfall Audio out of France. And it's amazing how you could have a turntable and, kind of have that old school feel of having a stereo system, in a dedicated space and enjoy your vinyl. But then you can also, again, walk up and head into the kitchen and continue listening to it, go into the backyard and continue listening to that same tune that you started at your dedicated stereo system. So it's just a lot of fun. I mean, our industry is too much fun.
Well, a couple of themes that have come up since I've been here a couple of days now, and I want to ask you about them because I feel like they're going to resonate. They resonated with me, and I imagine that will translate to others. First being, and I'll put it in context, that the integrator industry doesn't engage well, and by well, I'm not qualifying it. I'm just saying that there seems to be a deficiency in integrating with the design community.
Well, I think that's improved. And, that's kind of, the whole circle that I saw, call it 25 years ago. I think there was more this custom feel about integrating into the spaces. And then everyone moved away because of big brands that came along. And, it was just a matter of hanging black boxes and just making it work. But today, I think that, the smarter integrators are getting it. They're working with the interior designers, the architects. Even the homeowners want something that will integrate into their space. They're not, just slapping up black boxes anymore. It's more about the design, picking finishes. We have products like Arquitectura Sonora where you can select even the stone color and the metal finishes of your speaker. And it's mind-blowing. When you introduce something like that to the design community, it makes you their best friend because now they can have an input into how it will look. You can have your input of how it will sound. And together you can collaborate and have a much better result. So I beg to differ that, the integrators aren't that dumb. They're getting smart.
No, I apologize. I think you misinterpret the question in the way I'm asking it. I see an opportunity for the design community to engage more with integrators. And I'll give you a couple of examples why I feel that way, and I want your take on this. So I talk to a lot of designers on the show, and I'll talk to them about what they do, and then I like to go to their profiles, to their portfolios rather, and showcase how they do it. More designers these days, due to digital publication, are shooting professionally more.
So you're talking about interior designers.
I'm sorry, interior designers.
Okay.
Yeah. They're shooting their projects. And inevitably, I would say it's close to 50-50, those designers who Photoshop out the tech.
That's funny.
The cans.
Yeah.
The TVs.
So doesn't that tell you something to the integrator?
It should, but it also tells me something about interior designers. And there's a chasm between why an interior designer wouldn't engage an integrator at the start of a project. Because look, if they're taking out switches, outlets, cans, wires, TVs, speakers, if they're taking it out of the design for the photos, maybe they shouldn't be in the design to begin with.
Or the flip side is the integrator should be smart and integrated in such a way that the designers want them there.
Yeah, but I think, and I love this conversation, I don't think integrators are part of this conversation. I think,
I see what you're saying.
I think interior designers are bypassing the integrators, which I think is a huge mistake.
You're right. And that's where I think, not to be biased, but I'm going to be, the integrator should have a portfolio like Selective Designs, where they're able to take something that is beautiful, that the interior designers, architects will want as part of their decision making, as opposed to trying to jam in that black box or, that ugly speaker or that grill that nobody wants in the ceiling. Why not do it right? Make it invisible, make it disappear before the photo shoot. How about that?
And I think in the last couple of days, I'm trying to figure out why.
You know what? Where humans are have habits and they're hard to break, right? So I think, when you've been doing it for 15, 20, 30 years, some of these guys are dinosaurs out there. Not to insult anyone, but, we're getting to be up there. We're starting to be dinosaurs when we've been doing it for 25, 30 years. But we got to stay on top of it and look around and decide that, hey, we want to make it better for the end results that we're delivering. And you know what? I think a lot of the guys are doing it. And that's what I was saying. In the last couple of years, that's what I'm most excited about, is seeing integrators starting to click into place with, hey, we need to make those black boxes disappear. We need to make those grills disappear. We need to integrate with the designers and the architects and get people involved. It's not just all about me. It's about the whole process of making it work. And if that's what, guys are starting to realize, I think they'll be better off.
The brands that you're working with, what's the mindset? What's the conversation as it relates to how do we bring interior designers more onto the technical side of the conversation? How do we bring the integrators more onto the design side and the aesthetic? How do we talk to architects about, how do we have the conversation rather where we're really talking about that four-legged stool where you've got designer, architect, homeowner, and integrator? How do we have those conversations from the brand side? Because look, I believe because that's where the money is, that's what the driver is.
Yeah, I totally agree that, you need to have that approach of collaboration with all the team members of who's involved with a design build of a home. And I think it starts with the tools that you present, and the tools that you present are the brands that you're working with. And unfortunately for a lot of companies that have been stuck in a cycle of trying to work with the same brands for multiple years, they may have a very narrow approach and they may not be attractive to the interior designers and architects. What we found from Arquitectura Sonora's perspective, Waterfall's perspective, Nakkimatone's perspective, Selective Design as a whole, we bring you tools that are attractive to that industry, from beautiful sample kits that have stone that's been quarried in Italy. And this is the type of stone that the interior designer is already choosing for the other parts of the project. Now, if you show up with that tool in your tool pouch and show that you're in tune with what they're looking for, stones, metal finishes, having something that they're attracted to, that they can choose specific for their project, you'll, again, win over their hearts. And I think that's the approach from our perspective as the manufacturers. We know that the interior designers and architects love picking the finishes. And if you can let them do that, then you won't be photoshopped out of their design.
What is the next technological hurdle to fall? And I'll preface it with a thought, because I'm not an integrator. I'm a journalist. I'm not on the technology side. But I'm curious, something as simple as a speaker. When do we go completely wireless?
Wow, that's been something that people have debated for a long time. And, today you can buy a wireless speaker, but I always laugh. I say, yeah, look at this. We're in a wireless world, but we've got more wires than ever. And that's the truth. If you go right down to the heart of the technology, there's a wire somewhere. No matter what, you have to have a power source. So you can send signals wirelessly. I think we're at a fine point where wireless is cool. You can send your music request essentially to the system, and then it does its thing in the background to amplify it and make your speakers do their thing. And there are wireless speakers you can have with batteries, but then you're still limited. At some point, you still have to plug it in and have power to it. So It's one of these things where until they can send power wirelessly, we're not going to live in a real wireless world.
What is the next technological hurdle to be crossed?
Exactly that. Wireless power.
Is that the one? There's nothing in between that.
If you really want to live in a perfect wireless world where you could have some kind of technology that can be put somewhere and continue working without any wires, if that's the goal, that's something someone should work on.
Give me the elevator pitch for each of the products in your portfolio.
Well, Architectura Sonora is a beautiful solution for the design-oriented projects that require beautiful sculptures that happen to be professional speakers. And that's what Architectura Sonora does out of Italy, with stones that they're quarried right there in Europe, shaped into beautiful sculptures. And then they use B&C loudspeakers, which is the parent company. So you have professional, good quality sound. And you can incorporate beautiful LED lights as well. A little bit more than an elevator pitch, but that's Architectura Sonora. Then we have Waterfall Audio out of France, which are glass speakers. Again, perfect for those traditional or modern homes where you need that light to pass and have this beautiful element of glass brought in. And they happen to be speakers as well. Again, high quality, high performance Atom drivers that are built in France. And our portfolio is really just built around high quality, beautiful, design oriented products that also perform well. Nakkila, built in Canada, is an invisible speaker solution which was brought to market out of the need for having something that would perform better. Sure, there's lots of companies that will make invisible speakers, but if you want something that is an actual loudspeaker with a full enclosure that's beautifully sculpted out of aluminum, we have polished units that affect the sound. And, again, we went to the nth degree to make them sound amazing and easy to install. And that's Nakkila invisible loudspeakers.
I would be remiss if I didn't ask the question that I get all the time as far as, hey, what are other people doing about ... And you know what comes after the ... with regard to business and sales. I don't want to necessarily know how you address tariffs once they've been applied. What I'm more interested in is the conversation that happens internally about all of the if-then scenarios. If this happens, then what? How do we address it that way? Because I can't imagine how someone runs a business not knowing what your margin's going to be, what your pricing in various different markets is going to be, how you handle supply chain when then you have individuals in certain markets trying to front run tariffs, or others who not only front run it, but then store it so that they can deliver on a project that is a year and a half away. It feels to me like there is so much that goes into the conversation. How do you factor this? And then the last thing I will say about that is designers don't want to have to talk to their clients about, hey, listen, remember when we specified this speaker set and this project for that, or this product for that project, and then to come back 3 weeks later and say, yeah, well, the price is up now. And then to come back 2 weeks later and say, well, you got to buy it now or the price is going to go up. And then come back 6 weeks later and say, well, remember, yeah, now it's 13% more. How do you have those conversations internally, and how do you strategize for that?
Well, that's a great question. And to put my business hat on, what we've done at Selective Design is worked with the integrators and projects on a project by project basis. And if they need a locked in price, we've been able to say, okay, this will be the price. As of right now, as you know, the tariff situation has been this big roller coaster ride. But it's actually no different than what we've been dealing with for as long as we've existed. Being an importer, you always need to be prepared to hedge against currency fluctuations, freight costs increases, decreases. And the reality is there's a large margin that we have to have built into the solution that we're supplying out of the gate, all a long time ago before tariffs were talked about. So fortunately for us, we've been able to work with projects that are happening right now and happening in the future, and we're able to lock in prices. And the way we're able to do that is internally, we looked at it a long time ago and decided that we have to have always a bit of a buffer to be able to work with fluctuations in price. It's going to happen. Once this settles down and we can see where things are at, even the currency changes the amount of the tariff. In our minds, if you asked me what would happen, 6 months ago, we foresaw that there is going to be even longer than that, almost a year ago when they started, less than a year ago, when they started talking about tariffs. I'm from Canada, so Trump went after us right away and was threatening everyone with tariffs. At the end of the day, guess what? We're under the USMCA still today. There's no tariffs, so Nakkima is coming in free and clear, and we're able to take care of our dealers even better here on the US side. With Europe, we're happy with the 15% tariff that may or may not come at this point. We've already been paying for it. We've seen it on invoices for imported products, and that's okay. You know what? You need to have a so-called VAT here in America too. They have it in Europe. We have it in Canada. I don't want to start talking politics with someone, but I'd love to.
But you know what? You bring up a good question, and we'll just end it here. But what I will say is, these conversations have to happen, because having a conversation about a value-added tax, that's not a political conversation. To say that you're under the USMCA or the North American, right? You're not without the added tariffs, but you are with the added chaos and turmoil. And I think that's why having the conversation, it doesn't necessarily make it better, but I feel like it clarifies.
Yeah, you have to be upfront about the reality of where things are with trade. And, even for a U.S. company, there's tariffs are affecting them too, because they bring on a lot of their parts in order to make it in the U.S. So it's a very interesting conversation. I think it's great to have those conversations and be upfront with people that are part of it. But I think as a manufacturer or someone who's selling a product, you can't waffle on your price. It is what it is.
It is what it is.
Right? That's the bottom line.
And just like that, it is what it is. Thank you for doing this. This was great.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate this. This was fun. I thought, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? Go sit in the back of a VW? But here we are. This has been great.
It has been great. Thanks for doing this.
No problem. Thank you.